Can I have a motion from the board to open the December 6th, 2022 work session?
I move to open the December 6th, 2022 work session.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so,
Alright.
we are coming back for an encore performance of our sidewalk primer, which is great because you're the only person who actually sat through it this one, right?
Maybe.
So, Sabrina, I'm gonna turn it over to you. And
Okay,
Bob, okay?
I'm gonna share my screen. Good evening, everybody. Just give me a second to get this in.
So as part of the town board's goals and objectives, one of the major decisions that the board makes is guidance to staff as far as what sidewalk projects you would like us to focus on for the upcoming term. We through the comprehensive plan, there were a number of sidewalk connections that were identified. And we refocus our efforts based upon direction from the town board. So this is a primer that Sabrina has put together, basically outlining what our options are and how we move forward and where does the board think we should go these upcoming years, so we can take and focus our energies. Okay, Sabrina.
Okay, well, good evening again, everyone. Bob Cioli and I are here tonight to talk with you about the sidewalk primer that you have been sent. It is titled Connecting Newcastle Roadmap for Future Pedestrian Facilities. What we're referring to are sidewalks and trailways and different ways for people to get around the community. So he and I have a short presentation to you to kind of get you, give you a good background as to the sidewalk primer and where we stand and kind of head you towards making decisions. Let's see if I can get this to move forward. It's not going to let me do that. Okay. So what is a sidewalk primer? And so this sidewalk primer really looks at the current state of sidewalks and pedestrian facilities throughout the town. It identifies future connections based on comprehensive plan goals and actions. It looks at the town priorities that were made previously in regards to pedestrian facilities. And it also includes public input that was collected at the time up until the point that we actually produced the sidewalk primer. What the primer does is that it sets forth a process of investigation to really look at an area, a wish list area for a pedestrian facility or a sidewalk, and determines the feasibility of establishing that connection and whether or not it is both technically and financially viable to move forward with it. When we talk about sidewalk connections in the comprehensive plan, there are really four main goals within the comprehensive plan that really say do this, look at your connections. Goal number 10 is really focusing on the pedestrian and looking for non-motorized forms of transportation and to promote walkability. Goal number 11 looks at improving circulation and connectivity between the Chappaqua and Millwood hamlets, as well as Chappaqua Crossing. Goal number 14 looks at promoting the development of sidewalks where we already have existing infrastructure. If we have an existing sidewalk or we have sewer and water connections that are being improved, that is a priority area as compared to something that doesn't have any public services or existing facilities, existing sidewalks. Goal number 15 looks at coordinating, as I just mentioned, coordinating sidewalks and pedestrian facilities with other infrastructure planning with regional improvements. If the county is doing work within the town on county roadways, how can we piggyback and put in a sidewalk related to the county's efforts? So this is kind of the roots within the comprehensive plan that have led us to preparing a sidewalk primer. Current sidewalk conditions. When you look at the town today, this is a map of existing public sidewalks within Newcastle. You can see the dark lines. It's hard to see it because it's on the screen, but the dark lines show areas of existing sidewalks. You also have on here hamlet boundaries as well as schools and facilities, public properties. So sidewalks mainly exist within the hamlets today. There are what's considered incomplete connections within and between the hamlets. So the entire hamlet doesn't have sidewalks in Millwood, or even Chapel for that matter. Most schools within the community are not connected to the hamlets or have sidewalks. There's lack of walkable connections to parks and lack of walkable connections to regional facilities like the North County Trailway. So that gives you kind of the overall existing condition of sidewalks in the town. When we look at future connections, we identified 8 new connections have been identified by the town board in 2018 and 2020 through public input and through the comprehensive plan, meaning the comprehensive plan sidewalks are consistent with the goals and objectives as outlined in the previous slide. We looked at Bedford Road or Route 117 between King Street and Roaring Brook Road. We looked at Bedford Road, Route 117, between 117 or between King Street, Route 120 and Old Farm Lake as an alternative. We've examined Douglas Road between Mill River and Hardscrabble Roads. We looked at Millwood Road between the North County Trail and Gedney Park. We identified Quaker Road between Marcourt Drive and Gedney Park. We identified Roaring Brook Road east and west of the Sawmill River Parkway. We identified the Sawmill River Road Route 100 area between Millwood Park and Hidden Hollow Road. And we identified Station Place, the east side between the North County Trailway and the intersection of Millwood Road and Station Place. We also have been looking at the Chap Line. So these are the main areas that we have been focusing efforts, whether it's just by mentioning them here or moving forward, implementing the sidewalk primer. These these 5 sidewalks that are highlighted in pink are actual sidewalks where we have done a planning assessment and in some cases have moved forward and done an engineering assessment. And we're trying to obtain funding to implement, if it made sense. When we talked about the planning assessment and an engineering assessment, the primer identifies a digital planning profile that is conducted and a preliminary engineering study. The planning digital profile looks at computer-generated information, property lines, both public and private, and determines whether or not a pedestrian facility or a sidewalk generally fits. We also identify environmental sensitivities, steep slopes, wetlands, how many trees need to be removed. Once the digital planning profile is conducted, we then look to do a preliminary engineering study. And this is mainly to identify challenges, both technical and financial challenges. Bob, do you want to go through those items?
Oh, sure. Good evening, everyone. Yes, basically, thank you so much, Sabrina. Once the planning studies are done and the digital profiles are done, the next step, a little bit more in depth with the engineering study. We look at a lot of types of items that may be encountered as far as challenges during the construction design of the project. We outlined about several dozen right here: site visit to take a preliminary fit measurements, including rock removal, pole relocation, culvert crossings, underground utility relocation, water and sewer, property easement takings, crosswalk identification, and construction estimates. Of course, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullets, those are things which add several challenges to the construction. Of course, adds a lot of extra cost to the project itself. Next page, please, Sabrina. Basically, the connections that we have in progress that Sabrina and I have been looking at, her with the planning, me with the engineering end of it. Bedford Road, New York State, between King Street and Roaring Brook Road, that's planning right now. You have Douglas Road between Mill River Road and Hardscrabble Road. We had done the PES, which is the preliminary engineering study. Matter of fact, on November 13th, we did a town board presentation. I'll get into that after I finish this list. Then you got Millwood Road between North County Trail and Getney Park. That's planning, complete streetscapes report. That's something that an outside entity has looked at, I think, in unison with the county. Second from the last is a Sawmill River Road, New York State Route 100 between Millwood Park and Hidden Hollow Road. That's in the planning stage right now. And the spring of the state of before Chapline, the PES was done. That's actually being done by Barton and Lowood East, was a consultant with the town who did pretty much preliminary plans and estimates and did a feasibility study. So as an example, I'm going to use Douglas Road and just really use some excerpts from the memo that I prepared on November 13th. Basically, the section of the road we looked at was starting at Douglas Road intersection and the Duck Pond and continues westerly all the way to Hardscrabble Road and continues across Hardscrabble Road to the cul-de-sac. That's a length of approximately 6,200 feet, linear feet along that route I just described. And basically pretty much every one of the issues that we just outlined in our previous report a few slides back, we hit on this one. I'm going to mention them just so everyone gets an idea of the complexities and why this is such this one expensive. There were several rock outcroppings and steep slopes, and obviously that may require chipping and rock blasting and retaining walls, which adds a lot of cost to the project. There was approximately 25 utility poles, possibly utility pole relocation and coordinated with Con Edison, Rods and Altice. That always adds a lot of fun to the project, a lot of extra time to the project, and a lot of extra cost to the project.
We did
Then you have
So much fun.
I'm just thinking of you talking about the they have to do by the bus
Yeah.
in a couple of months, and now this.
Yeah. Okay.
anyway.
Bob.
Oh, that's sorry. Then you have 4 culvert crossings. That's quite expensive because anytime you have to widen the road, put a sidewalk in over culvert crossing, it's very expensive to add that addition. It's sometimes up to $2,000 a foot just for a culvert. There was quite a few guide rail which had to be removed and or replaced because of the sidewalk profile. Underground utilities is another big cost because a lot of times you have to have water and gas, and when you put in a new sidewalk, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need some sort of curbing, you're going to need some sort of drainage. And of course, the drainage can't go on top of the water or the gas, and those have to be relocated. That's costly, time consuming. Have to go through the county for that and deal with Con Edison as well. By the way, I'm on F right now. I'm on F, but you don't have the memo in front of you. I'm just reading from it. Sorry about that. Then you have a proposed walkway over certain driveways. That's a big problem because when you have a sidewalk nowadays, it has to meet ADA requirements, and they require a cross slope, which is longitudinal to the running cross slope of the sidewalk. And if you have a driveway that's steeper than that, it creates all kinds of problems because it's almost impossible sometimes to cut back the driveway. One of the biggest concerns we have is with the sidewalk section. In general, a typical sidewalk section is between 11 and 14 feet from the edge of the pavement. And basically that includes the shoulder, the curb, the snow shelf, and the sidewalk itself. So that is a lot of extra width to the project. And because of that, a lot of these older roads in town have meandering right-of-ways, and really the biggest concern we have is, do we need to take takings or do we need to take easements and consent release forms? That adds a lot of time and extra cost to the project, and also sometimes with the sight lines around the curves, depending on the geometry of the roadway, Douglas Road, the geometry is, as you can tell when you drive it, there's a lot of tight curves along there. And it's sometimes almost impossible in this particular case to keep the sidewalk all on one side, which means you have to have mid-level, mid-street crosswalks. Those are really not recommended, especially when you have sight lines that are very limited, such as this particular road, based on Google Maps and just riding the road on a daily basis. I've been coming to work for many, many years, and I drive that road every day, and there's just a lot of blind curves on that roadway. In this particular case, the cost of that project with all these types of challenges during the design, during the construction, is approximately between, I had it written down here, it's between 4.8 and 5.3 million. So that's quite expensive because of all the challenges one would have on this particular stretch of roadway. So that ends my part of the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
So that's a long way of saying that we did the engineering study and came up with the conclusion that Douglas Road just presented too many environmental and other challenges to us in order for us to be able to put the road sidewalk in there safely. And it was just cost prohibitive. So as much as we've been asked about it and asked to put it in, we unfortunately came down with a no. But we do have some other alternatives.
Sabrina, on the chart you were looking at, it also says that 117 in between King Street and Roaringbrook Road is still in planning, but didn't we really come to the conclusion there that that's not economically feasible?
Yes.
Given
Yeah.
the topography and the amount of easements or land we would have to take from.
Right, so the planning is the last step, the last stage we took on that, because we
Yeah.
came to the conclusion that it was 30 some odd property owners, all required takings. And because of the state requirement of the 5-foot snow shelf, Bob, help me out here, 5-foot snow shelf, 4-foot sidewalk.
Yes, basically you need.
How many feet do we have to take?
About 14 feet, 15 feet. Basically, that includes 2 feet for the shoulder, 1 foot for the curb, 5 feet for the snow shelf, 5 feet for the sidewalk. Then you generally need a couple of feet behind the sidewalk for restoration. So you're looking at between, 14 and 16 feet.
So
Plus the relocation of the poles and the culverts and
and
everything
retaining
else that was
walls.
there.
So when you think about 117 and the number of village homes that are along 117, more modest homes who have modest front yards, you're talking about basically eliminating the front yards of those property owners, and that just it wasn't feasible. That and the environmental challenges that we had with culverts and wetlands along the way, streams, it just was it was too difficult for us.
Another big topic too, in that particular project, the cost of the drainage was such a huge percentage of the project itself because of all the requirements with DEC and the stormwater regulations. It just wasn't viable to do that because the drainage cost was exorbitant compared to
Right.
everything else.
That's why the tap line's so exciting for that area.
Which
That's right.
is why we shifted gears and looked for we still understood that we needed to create a connection between that side of town and the downtown. So we started thinking outside the box, and that's where the chap line ended up being what we think is a very exciting alternative to just a traditional sidewalk.
And so
It's
the intention of the sidewalk primer is to really set forth the process that we undertake as your staff to try and hone in on the best connections that you guys come up with. The public may say, we want a sidewalk, in my neighborhood, but it doesn't meet a lot of the targets in the sense of what the town tries to achieve in spending money on a sidewalk. And then we go through an analysis to determine how expensive, both from an environmental standpoint and from an economic standpoint, that sidewalk would be. So that as the town board, you guys have some background information to make your decisions. Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, when we were going through and updating the comprehensive plan, sidewalks in single-family residential neighborhoods was probably the #1 ask. And we can't put sidewalks everywhere. It's just not economically feasible, particularly when they don't connect to anything else.
So that sort of leads us into our follow through, which is helping the board to understand what their options might be going forward. And we do have, two things on the horizon. Let's just talk about complete streets. So we were approached earlier this year by Westchester County, and they basically asked us whether or not we wanted to participate in a complete street study. We gave them we said yes, and we gave them a number of options that we were interested in exploring the feasibility and our ability to be able to install sidewalks where we didn't have them right now. And the section of road that we ultimately ended up studying was the section of 133 between the Millwood Hamlet and the North County Trailway and West Orchard School, passing by Getney Park. It's not a particularly long stretch of road, and there actually is a sidewalk stub at the mouth of West Orchard Road and 133, and there are sidewalks in the Millwood Hamlet. You've got the North County Trail, and we have long thought how fabulous it would be to be able to create a link between the North County Trail and Getney Park.
And the Millwood Hamlet and the school.
And everything that flows through there, but the sidewalks are already there, so it's just, it's a wonderful segue. The entity Complete Streets, actually in your packets, there is a report, a workshop report that they submitted to us. We're gonna get them to come in and speak to the board and actually present the report in early January. But what this is actually one of the stretches of road that we're gonna be recommending to the town board to pursue. I think after they come in and do a workshop and present the workshop to you, that you're gonna be very impressed with the work that was done and the actually limited number of homes that are impacted. So we think it's something that we might be able to do.
Because we can snake some of the sidewalks through
Actually
Getney.
through Getney Park, and so we don't have to be on 133 the entire time. So I would say that, what would you say, Bob, about half of the path would actually snake through Getney Park?
I would say almost half,
Yeah.
yes, because there's so much property on the south side by Gedney Park. We'd be able to keep it entirely on the town property, which would benefit and save a lot of cost on the project as well because of that. So that helps us quite a bit.
Yeah, so we had New York State DOT, we had representatives from CCSD with us, we had Millwood Fire Company came, we had some residents were there as well, we had representatives from Pete Harkin, from Assemblyman Burdick's office. Lisa and Vicky joined us as well. We had additional staff there, so it was really a terrific project, and this is gonna be one of the recommendations that we are gonna make to the board as far as a sidewalk construction to pursue for 2023. Bob, did I leave anything out on that, Sabrina? No?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
The other thing we wanted to bring to the board's attention is that, as you're aware, the county is gonna be coming in and installing a county trunk, a sewer extension up 120. And we, at the same time, are gonna be piggybacking and replacing the water main to try to keep the disruption to our residents down to a minimum.
Remember, that's up 120, like to Wagon Road
Okay.
Camp.
Our sidewalk right now along 120 ends at Mark Court, and that's actually along the same route. The other thing that we're proposing is a sidewalk that would start at Marquardt where our current sidewalk ends and extends up along the same side of the street to the southernmost entrance of the Wagon Road Camp, which is where the construction is going to end. We actually, Bob and I were speaking earlier today, and we are gonna be asking the engineer on the project for a change order for both survey work that would help support that sidewalk and then design work. In the hopes that those residents that are gonna be so terribly inconvenienced when, once we repave the road and they have nothing to show for all this wonderful infrastructure that got put in, that there'll be an extension of sidewalk. And ultimately, we would love to be able to take and extend that sidewalk up to Roaring Brook School. And again, continue the connections from Roaring Brook into Millwood and truly make the town a walkable town. It is a very ambitious project, but at the end of the day, all of our sidewalk projects, they're in bits and pieces. That's the only way we can do it. We can't afford to do it all told. I wish we could.
Well, this is a nice way to take advantage of the county projects, with the
Exactly right.
replacement of the sewer line and the water main. I mean, the addition of the sewer
Exactly.
Water
It's
trunk
gonna be
line
ripped
and-
up anyway.
Right.
Right, and
So do we
actually,
know what we would be saving because
Well,
of the
I-
joint nature of the
I
project?
don't know, I'm hoping that we could take advantage of the traffic controls that are already in place and are quite onerous once you're on a state road. But again, the fact that we're going to be disrupting this portion of 120 anyhow, to be able to do everything together and piggyback it together to sort of minimize the inconvenience to our residents, and at the end of the day, leave them with an extended sidewalk. The sidewalk along 120 has been fabulously popular. You know, it's the sort of thing, if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
And, you know, everybody walks. And so we're thrilled to be able to get people out of their cars and walking to the train station, walking to downtown. It's just fabulous. So I think those are the two that we're talking about right now. Since we're talking about the chap line, I actually have an addition to our agenda for this evening. We had an opportunity to speak with a number of individuals from Metro North as part of our continuing work on the chap line project. As you may recall, the chap line would actually start on Metro North property that is between the fence, the end of Chestnut Oaks and the railroad property. And we would be running it a 20-foot wide easement along Metro North's property for 1,400 feet, Bob?
2,400 feet, Jill.
2,400, sorry, 2,400 feet. And so we had a preliminary conversation with Metro North about what that easement process might look like. And in order to get the ball rolling on that, we're gonna need to do some survey work and also some appraisal work for that easement. And so I'm going to be asking the board for authorization to issue an RFP for both survey work for Metro North property and also for the appraisal, which is by the end of this week, we will be sending Metro North a preliminary packet that consists of the feasibility study that's already been done by Barton and Judas, along with some mapping that they requested. And then the next thing they're going to need after that is the survey and the appraisal work in order to pursue the easement.
And they were initially amenable to
Yes.
looking at this easement, which is
Yes.
why we would do this.
Pursue it, right. We had preliminary conversations with Metro North during the feasibility process. And they had actually recommended to us that the entry permit be held until we actually had a contractor and let the contractor do that. And Bob and I were under the mistaken impression that both the easement and the entry permit had to be pursued together. And we've since been told that no, we can actually start on the easement process ahead of time. So we're happy to take advantage of that.
And I have a question financially in terms of the board's decision making. So there are three options here.
Mhm.
So would we be looking at prioritizing which ones to do time wise, or would we be able to do more than one at the same time?
We're hoping to be able to do them basically simultaneously. They're really gonna be in different phases. The 120 sidewalk that would be piggybacked onto the county and the town's already existing project would be the survey work and the design work would be done by an outside engineer because we already have an engineer on that project.
Right,
So
and
we
that's an
wouldn't
obvious one to start with because it's in process, right?
The thought is that's probably spring 2024.
So we have asked the county for some clarification. Bob, did we get a response back from Marion Papa regarding the staging of those three projects?
Yeah, he said he believes the relief sewer in along 120 is expected to be out to bid towards the end of 2023. And according to Marion as well, he said the Quaker Street sewer water main project is in flux right now and most likely will not impact the construction of the New York State DOT culvert at KIP and Route 120.
Okay, but between the relief sewer and the 120 sewer / water main replacement, which is gonna go first? That was really the question we had for the county.
And whose place?
But that's the really sooner guy, is the Hans Place one. We'll get some clarification.
I'll
We'd ask the
get some
county-
more answers from him on that.
That it's great that the county has finally, come to the table and is ready to do all these projects, but they cannot do all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
We have to have some.
Especially
phase.
two of them at least are in very close proximity to each other.
All three are
We're
in
in
close
that.
proximity, we can't. So we just can't, they have to just let us know what they're doing. But certainly the sidewalk project, if that's something that the board is seriously considering, and we're hoping that they are, we would wanna get obviously the change orders, but we would also want to start talking to the residents. There are 6 property owners involved, and we would need to secure takings from all 6 of them. When we put in the sidewalk on 120 initially, New York State DOT allowed easements, which was a much easier conversation to have with the property owners. Now they require takings, which has just made the entire process a little bit more difficult. So I'd like to get a jump on that.
So that's something we were thinking we would discuss at our initial meeting in January on the 3rd.
Yes.
And Jill, can you send, the pictures we looked at with just on 120 showing the sidewalk up to Wagon Road and then from Wagon Road up to.
Oh, Bob, those maps that you did,
Yes,
those are the maps.
Yeah,
we
can you
sent.
circulate those to the board?
yes, absolutely.
Are they? I didn't see them in the packet, not those.
I'm sorry, I thought I included them.
Folks, Bob and I have
There's
to
plenty of
sign on to the planning board meeting, so
Oh,
Okay.
Sabrina, could I ask if you could send us your presentation, the one you showed us today?
absolutely, I'll send it to you later
That would
this
be
evening.
great, thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody have a good night.
Good
All
night,
right,
everyone.
thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
That she just showed us.
Yeah, that may be good. It may not be as nicely laid out as this, yeah.
Right.
And we'll get the, I'll get
It's just
those
an
maps.
easier way to look at
Sure.
all the information.
Josh? Josh.
Hi, Josh.
So Josh is with
Good
us this
evening, everybody.
evening to talk about senior exemptions. I know he circulated an email. Does the board have any questions?
So I do.
Yes.
So can you just talk to us a little more about the medical exemption? So I spoke to a number of my colleagues who are supervisors in other towns, and it seems like most towns did adopt the increase in the senior exemption, but they did not allow write-off of medical expenses because they thought it was too onerous to have to keep track of. So I just wanted you to see if you could just talk to that a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So that's been my experience as well. I'm very active in the Westchester County Assessors Association. I happen to be the outgoing president and the incoming president. And so I have
Us
been
too.
having conversations with folks from around the county and around the state, actually, about the same thing. There's a very wide gap in the guidance that has to do with what is unreimbursed medical expenses. I know that on your income tax return, there is a line for that. State did not opt to have us look at that. I know some of my colleagues are concerned about that being an onerous process. You know, we implement policy every day. It's just something that people have to get used to. The issue I have with doing it right off the bat is that there's no good predictable information out there that would show what that's going to do to our assessment roll. And why that's important is if somebody gets an exemption, somebody else pays for it. And we don't know what that's going to do to our tax rates, and particularly in the climate with a 2% cap, it could really have a deleterious effect on the other taxpayer.
Okay. Anyone on the board have questions?
I have a question. I know that the law allows for a sliding scale. Did
Yes.
you recommend that, or that was not part of your memo? I'm just wondering where other towns stand on that, and if we were considering that, if you were considering that.
So I think that everywhere in the county, there's nothing uniform about that. Some folks have adopted the sliding scale. We have the sliding scale currently. And so some folks have just adopted the maximum of 50,000. And anything that's over that is exempted. So if you can imagine right now, the minimum income to receive a 50% exemption is $29,000. That moves to 50,000, and then the sliding scale goes down by 5% from the 50,000 up to 58,099. You know, I think if we're going to change it, I think we should probably change it to the maximum increase, see how that goes, and then, you know, if the board would like to contemplate in the future getting rid of that sliding scale, you know, that's one way to pare back some of the impacts, because it eliminates people from being eligible. That's what that does.
To maintain the sliding scale.
To not offer a sliding scale
Not offer
reduces,
sliding.
right, it reduces the ability to have more income and be able to write it down. Yes.
Mhm. Okay, so you're advocating not to utilize the sliding scale.
No, I would advocate to keep in place the sliding scale, and then, so I have to implement this county program anyway as part of my charge. And so what I would like to see happen would be, let's let it go for 3 to 5 years. Let's see what the impact has, because we're going to be able to measure our direct impact against the county assessment roll. And if it doesn't look like it's going to be too burdensome, then I would come back to you in 3 to 5 years, or whenever you ask me to, and I would give you whatever data that I have. You guys can make an informed decision.
Okay, so we would pass the law with the sliding scale and see how that works.
That would be my
And in a
recommendation.
few years
That's
revisit.
the way we always
Just-
do it.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Sounds good to
any
me.
other questions? I mean, I think we should do this. But not include the medical.
Okay, right.
I think that makes sense too. It seems like an administrative,
Right.
almost impossibility, and so I would agree.
Yeah, defer to you guys.
All right,
Sounds great. I appreciate the time. I hope you guys have happy holidays, and then maybe in the next week or so, is this something you guys would like to do for your next meeting? I can work with Ed and get a resolution together, or maybe
Yes,
you already
that would
have
be
it?
good.
yeah, now, if you can get it done in time, that would be great.
Yeah, we would have a
A week from
public hearing.
today,
Schedule a public hearing in January,
right,
Yeah,
we can workshop it next week.
right.
Year.
Perfect. Exactly. All right, sounds good. Thank you, Josh.
thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Take
All right, have a
care.
good night.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, you too.
All right, the remainder of the administrative items, we've got a payment of claims for checks dated December 7th. There's also a retroactive approval for checks dated November 30th. We've got authorization to approve the 2023 UMR MEPCO health plan rates and the MVP healthcare rates. We actually offer 2 different health care plans for our employees, and annually our rates are approved by the town board. So this is just some of our housekeeping. There's authorization to award the bid for the DPW full service uniform purchasing. Also pursuant to the union contract, we provide uniforms to staff annually and biannually. Next is authorization to purchase anthracite filter media for the Millwood water treatment plant. It's a required chemical, but the reason why it's before you is because it's a $17,000 and change charge, and anything over $10,000 we bring to the board to just make them aware of the expenses that are being approved. Like everything else, everything is going up.
Yeah.
Wait till we get a little further down. There's authorization to approve police vehicle purchase, which is revised, and it's revised because we ordered 2 cars, 2 interceptors in early 2022 for delivery during 2022. They won't make it here until 2023, and when they do, they'll each be $8,000 more than the original price. So that's.
Cause they bumped the model year, so we'll be getting 2023s, not 2022s. We ordered them in February.
And we would have taken the 22s, so it doesn't matter. But that was not an option. Okay, let me just get back to where I was. We've got 3 street opening bond permits. Once the town approves the restoration work on roadways, the monies are taken in and returned to the property owners who everything's with them. Next is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of Mount Kisco Country Club. It's a cash maintenance bond agreement for stormwater improvements. So we hold on to this for a number of years, the cash bond to guarantee work that's done. So they have stormwater that's required of them at the facility, and we just make sure that it holds up. Let me see, and then I guess we're gonna go into the proposed actions. Does anyone have any question on the administrative items?
No.
Okay, good.
Alright, are we good? So I think we can go into the resolutions.
So do you have a copy? Thank you.
You wanna start? Do the whole first page.
Sure.
That's true.
It's a lot today.
Okay. I move to accept the resignation of Harvey Bonaparte as member of the Zoning Board of Appeals effective December 1st, 2022. The town would like to thank Harvey for his many years of service.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to retroactive approval payment of claims, checks dated November 30th, 2022. I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $81,294.90 listed on the summary AP check, register, and detailed voucher detail report, both dated November 30th, 2022. Checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, November 30th, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Approval, payment of claims, checks dated December 7th, 2022. I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $1,016,246.75 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detailed voucher detail report, both dated December 4th, 2022. Checks will be printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Authorization to approve UMR MEBCO health insurance premium rates for 2023. I move to approve the following premium rates for the 2023 UMR/MEBCO health plan effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. The 2023 base plan rates indicated represent a 3% increase over 2022 rates. The bronze plan rates increased 5.50% from 2022. Do you want me to read all of that?
You just ask further indicated in the resolution. I don't think you'd need to read all that detail.
Okay, as further indicated in the resolution, the bronze plan is the lowest level plan category in the Affordable Care Act marketplace with lower premium rates, but higher deductibles and copays, which under this act, we are required to offer to our consortium members. COBRA, continuation of health coverage after separation of employment rates by law are 102% of the premium rates for each health plan and coverage tier offered.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Should I go?
Sure.
Okay. authorization to approve MVP Healthcare Inc. HMO plan premium rates for 2023. I move to approve the following premium rates with MVP Healthcare Inc., the town's HMO provider for the term February 1, 2023 through January 31, 2024, and move to authorize the town administrator to sign the 2023 rate quote as group representatives broker on behalf of the town of Newcastle. The 2023 rates represent a 5.82 increase over 2022 rates, and as more fully described in the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize to award the contract for bid DPW 2022-08 full service uniform purchasing based upon the lowest aggregate total for each individual item to Varsity Men's Shop at 1239 Castle Hill Avenue in the Bronx in the amount of $6,305 for the aggregate total.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the purchase of anthracite filter media for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant from CEI Carbon Enterprises Inc. in the not to exceed amount of $16,668.50, which includes freight as per quote 2481 dated November 18, 2022.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
I move to authorize the release of 3 bonds for street opening permit number 2020-0020 for the amount of $800, 2021-0010 for the amount of $1,050, and 2021-0015 for the amount of $800 to Soul Sting Inc. at 90 Donovan Road in Connecticut. The work was restored and completed to the town's satisfaction.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Want me to read this one?
Sure.
Resolution authorizing, okay, acceptance of Mount Kisco Country Club cash maintenance bond agreement for stormwater improvements. As indicated in the resolution below. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby approves the cash maintenance bond agreement for stormwater improvements and authorizes the town supervisor or the town administrator to execute the cash maintenance bond agreement for stormwater improvements and take all other actions necessary. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the acceptance of the aforementioned stormwater maintenance bond and the monies posted thereof as security for the stormwater improvements and maintenance.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Authorization to approve police vehicle purchase, to authorize the purchase of 2 March 2023 Ford Interceptor SUV police vehicles from Nielsen Ford, 170 Ridgedale Avenue, Morristown, New Jersey, as per the Westchester County Contract RFP-WC-22336 for the total amount of $119,000, Okay,
It's a lot of words.
It's a lot of numbers.
$119,006, I forget.
$119,609
and $1,000.44, sorry. Ooh, with each vehicle totaling
Don't do it.
$59,804.72 each, as per the quoted dated November 18th, 2022. This resolution is revised from January 18th, 2022 due to availability.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can you take us home?
Go ahead, Nikki.
Authorization to adopt a local law to establish an open space fund dedicated to the acquisition, improvement, and preservation of open space land within the town of Newcastle.
I second.
Wait, hang on. I move,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. I move to adopt a local law, to establish an open space fund dedicated to the acquisition, improvement, and preservation of open space land within the town of Newcastle.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adopt a local law to amend chapter 48 of the Code of the Town of Newcastle to implement the provisions of 19 New York CRR Part 1203, which becomes effective on December 29, 2021. That can't be right. Which becomes effective on December 9, 2022.
22, yeah.
2022 concerning the administration and enforcement of the New York State Uniform Code and Energy Code.
I second.
All in favor?
Okay.
So
do we,
anything else?
so next time, Christina, can you just add the RFP for the survey work and the appraisal for
Yeah.
Metro North property? That's great, thank you.
Great. Anything else? And I have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.